Okay, we are back in our sample rock castle construction file where we're actually going to create an invoice. We're going to actually do this in two ways. We're going to actually first use the create invoice icon on the standard workflow, and then we're also going to create an invoice from an estimate. Let's first go ahead and create an invoice using the standard workflows from our home page here. When you click on that button, you'll see a blank invoice where you can basically start with a clean slate. First thing you want to do is choose your customer job. Let's go ahead and choose, I'm going to scroll down a little bit and choose one of our newer customers here, Robert Green. And we're going to allocate this to the living room job. And we're going to basically, for the living room job, since we don't really have much in there right now, we're going to go ahead and create, using our same item here, we're going to go ahead and create blueprints. Before he starts any work, we need blueprints created. And we don't have a rate assigned to that, but we can go ahead and do that here. And let's say that for this particular job, the blueprints are only going to cost him $150. And then once you do that, the amount will default in the amount column. And this is not a taxable item, so we don't have to worry about that. We can also select a class if we want to, either new construction, remodel, or overhead. And we're going to call this new construction. And we won't really cover class in this, but in this case, we'll go ahead and select it. Make sure we have all the information. You got his address and everything. Make sure the date's correct. And the invoices will consecutively number based on what the previous number was, unless you go in there and change it. Everything looks okay, so we can go ahead and save and close. And now let's go into the Customer Center and scroll down, or we can actually go ahead and start typing. And it should take us down there to his profile here. And we can see that we have two invoices here. And the invoice that we just created is right here. And I'll double click on it so you can see it. And I'm going to go ahead and close out of that. And that's how you do it on the fly or actually from scratch using the home page. But what we're going to do now is we're going to actually create an estimate, create an invoice from an estimate. So in an earlier exercise, we created some estimates for some customers here. So let's go ahead and go back to our active customer list. And we did a estimate for Christy Abercrombie for her kitchen. And here's the estimate right here. So let's double click on that to open that up. And it's really easy to convert an estimate into an invoice. You have to make sure you have all that turned on, in which we do. And you can actually do that through your preferences in the Jobs and Estimates tab. So as you can see, we are in the estimate right now, and we want to turn it into an invoice. So we're going to go ahead and click on this link here, and it's going to say one or more items have not been assigned a class. So at this point, we can go ahead and cancel and assign the class. We're going to call this new construction. Actually, we're going to call this remodel. And now we can go ahead and click on the create invoice. And it says that you have changed the transaction. Do you want to record your changes? Yes. And once you do that, it's going to have us make whatever choices we want to do. We can either create, and if we have progressive invoicing turned on, which we do, we can create an invoice for the entire estimate or for a percentage of the entire estimate, or create an invoice for selected items if you have several items but you want to do the invoice for only certain ones. But we've only got the one thing, so we're going to keep this as our option and click OK. And then look at what happens. That estimate turns into an invoice. And we want to make sure that everything looks good here. And we're going to save and close that. And when we go back to our Customer Center, we still have the estimate there, but we now have an invoice that's tied to that estimate. And then if you want to go ahead and do a memorized transaction with that, you can go back into that and do a memorize here. And you'll probably want to change the name of that. You can just say Blueprint Invoice. And we would only use this invoice if we didn't need to send an estimate beforehand. And we would not need to automate it. We would just use it when we would need it. So we would just do not remind me. Click on OK. And so we'll go to our memorized transaction list, which I already have called up over here. But if you need to access it, if it's not open, go to Lists and the memorized transaction list. And as you can see, we have Blueprint Invoice as part of that. And if we wanted to, we could create a group to group those. I did that in a separate exercise about creating groups with the memorized transactions lesson, so I'm not going to repeat that here. So hopefully, and I'll go back to the home page. So that's basically all we're going to do with invoicing. So hopefully you learned a lot from that short tutorial, and we'll see you again really soon. Take care.